Welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the auto filter from Ableton. Now this is not a review but a deep dive guide about this device. Now everything is in tiny chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. Now if you like what I do, remember to like and subscribe, and if you want to buy me a coffee, you can. Just check the links at the description. Right, so the auto filter is a powerful tool, but some options are just confusing, and the manual gives you just a brief description of what it can do, so it's kind of confusing. So we're gonna break it down step by step right here. Now I'm assuming that you're starting maybe, and you're just getting to know the auto filter. You have no experience, so I need to cover pretty much all the settings. Some of the settings are pretty obvious if you have some experience, so you're gonna get a little bit bored. So that's why everything is timeline, so you can move forward to the next one. So right now we need to talk about the main thing, which is the filter types, and how we are going to be cutting frequencies, or how we're going to use the filter. So right from the start, you get different ways of cutting. In this case, we're going to be doing a low pass. We are just cutting the high frequencies, and you can do 12 dB per octave or 24 dB per octave. The 24 is just much more aggressive, and the 12 it's just not that aggressive. Pretty simple. Now, of course, the other one is going to be a high pass. It's going to cut the low frequencies. And if I play something and do it, it's just going to cut the highs, the lows, and let the highs pass. And the other one is just going to cut the highs and let the lows pass. Pretty simple. Now, the other one is going to be a band pass. And this one, what it will do, it will just let this band pass. That's why it's called a band pass. Now, if I bring a spectrum, we are going to be able to see this a little bit better. Now, right here, it says that it's cutting lows and it's cutting highs, which is kind of what it's doing pretty much. But the thing is that, of course, what you will need to do is add a little bit of resonance if you really want to expose where you are. And when you do that, you're gonna see that you have a peak right here. So this is the band pass. Right, so this is, what you get. And then what you get is the other thing, which is going to be a notch. Right now, the sound of this synthesizer is a pretty dull sound because it's very mono, so we don't have a lot of things going on. Now, if I go to unison and I bring a little bit more, you're going to be able to see a lot more. So this one, of course, it will create a notch. It will just kind of a dip at some point. Now, the resonance is going to dip less, and if you go to do less resonance, it's going to dip more. Of course, if you're using 12 or 24, the effect is going to be a little bit different. So if I go to higher frequencies, this is the notch. We are just kind of creating a notch. Just going down, just dipping. Remember that the resonance will play a part, just like with the band pass. And if we do a mild one, it's just going to be a little bit less. But that's what we are doing. We are just notching. Right, so these are the most common kind of 4 filter types that you get. Now you get one more, and this one is going to be called the morph. So when you go here, you have another option, which is going to be the morph. Now, what this does pretty much is going to morph between the 4 different filter types. And if I kind of play something and go up on the morph, and maybe I'm going to go to a place, maybe here, notice that it's kind of a morphing between the low pass, the band pass, the high pass, and then it goes to a notch, and then back. So that's what it does. It's just morphing between the 4 different filter types. Now, one tiny advice is that you can right-click right here, and you can stand on the band pass right here, or maybe right-click and go to just the low pass, to the beginning of the low pass, and it will just gonna just take you there. So right here, you get the filter emulations, and it says clean by default. So when it says clean, it means that you're not applying any kind of a drive, any kind of an emulation of nothing. It's just pretty clean. And now this is going to be very, very friendly for your CPU usage. Now the other ones are not that friendly. They're not aggressive. They're not going to consume a lot, but they're a little bit more aggressive than the clean. So these ones are emulations of different chips on analog synths. They say famous analog synths. Some synths, maybe one synth is not famous. For example, the first one, the OSR, is a kind of an emulation from an Oscar synth. It's not a holy grail synthesizer, but they are just decided to emulate that. So this one will do just that. Instead of doing clean, it's just going to emulate the OSR and how it cuts and the curves and pretty much everything. Now also, when you use this emulations, you get a drive. So going up in drive is gonna, give you that magic. And if you go up and you resonate, notice it is still pretty controlled. Now all of these different types, they have different vibes. So this one again is the Oscar emulation. Then you have the MS2, and you could guess is the MS20. So if I go to that one, there we go, we get that. It's something very common with the MS20. Maybe if I go to 24, just gonna be a little bit easier to hear. But of course we can drive it as hell if you wanted to. Right, there you go. Then you get your self-oscillation. Now do we get it with a clean? No, we don't get it. So they are different, from each other. Then you have the PRD. This is a ladder filter. And this, if I stand right here and I go to the MS2, the curve is just a little bit different. Yeah, it's just a little bit different. Even if I do something like that, it's just going to change it a little bit. So they are different emulations. And, this one is a ladder filter. Now, since a million synths used back in the day ladder filters, this could be an emulation of anything. A lot of people say is the Moog. Well, yeah, that's the most famous synth that uses ladder filters. But you never know. And then the SMP is going to be a hybrid between the MS2 and the PRD, and this is a custom one they created. And all of them, they just give you something else. You're just gonna need to play around with them. Right, but remember they use a little bit more than the clean. Right, so that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go back to a default kind of a preset. So you get, your 12, your 24, you get your drive, and you get the different shapes, and you can move your filter and boost the resonance, just like any other filter. So we don't get anything special so far, besides from the emulations of the chips. That's all, but you can do a lot more, and we need to talk about this right now. Now, I could go to the Quantize, but the thing is that the Quantize sounds really cool when we use it with the LFO. So I'm going to be covering the LFO first, and then we're going to talk about the Quantize. So the LFO is just what it says, is a low frequency oscillator. It's going to modulate the cutoff in some fashion. How? Well, this fashion. It's going to follow whatever shape you have right here, and it's just going to be applying that modulation. And we can easily hear this. If I play something, I'm going to go disable unison and go back to a more kind of a basic sound. And I'm going to go up in the amount. As you go up, of course, this is going to be doing that modulation. And notice it's going up and down. So what it's doing, it's modulating the frequency. It's doing something like this. Now, of course, right now, it's just super slow. So right here, you need to choose what, how fast you want to go. You can go and use hertz, which is, hertz. You can go much faster or much slower, or you can sync to your tempo and you can use subdivisions. Right? So pretty simple so far. Now, of course, the most common waveform is going to be a sine wave, but you get other waveforms. You get the square, which is going to be kind of an on and off kind of a thing. Then you get a triangle, just a different waveform. Then, of course, you get this ramp up and then a ramp down. Right? So, of course, it depends on what you want to do. You want to select different waveforms. Now then, of course, notice it says LFO/S&H. So S&H is sample and hold. And if you don't know what sample and hold is, it's kind of a random, let's say. I'm just going to resume everything and say it's random. Because it works a little bit different when you create random. It has a very particular way of creating the randomness, but it's just random. Now, of course, you get all the shapes, and we don't have a way to enable the sample and hold, and it's because the sample and hold, it's going to be used right here as a shape. And you get two. You get this one and you get this one. So I'm going to go first to the last one, and I'm going to just play something. And we can hear it's random. Now if I go slower, notice that we have a pattern, and we cannot predict it because it's random. Now what's the difference with the other one, with this one, the one we have right here? So this one, it's still random, but it will do it on the left speaker and on the right speaker. So you're gonna hear a difference, and you need to use headphones right now if you're doing this from a phone that has one single speaker. It might not work. It's gonna sound funny. So in the left it's doing something, and on the right it's doing something else. And it's because by default the auto filter will receive a stereo signal, and if I go for example to the sine wave, we don't hear a difference between the left and the right because both are doing the same. But behind the scenes it's doing a sine wave on the left and it's a different sine wave on the right. Now we don't hear the difference because it's doing the same thing on both. But on this one is doing one thing on the left and one different thing on the right. That's the purpose. So let me just bring a kind of a default or fresh kind of a, device. And we need to talk about the LFO, but we need to talk about the phase. And then we have the spin. But then when you go to subdivisions, you have phase and you have offset. What's the difference? Okay, so I'm going to go right here. And we know that when we go to random, we are going to be getting something in the left. And then we get something in the right. So we get this kind of a white spread. And that's fine because, left and right are doing different things. So behind the scenes, this is doing with all the shapes, not just with the random one, with some hold. It's doing something in the left and it's doing something in the right. The thing is that we don't hear a difference because the sound source is mono, of course. But in the left, it's doing this sine wave, and in the right, it's doing the same sine wave. What if we could just kind of separate them so we can get a white sound? So that's going to be the phase and the spin. So the phase, what it will do, it will offset the phase of one of the channels. So as soon as they go up, notice that if you need to use speakers, of course, good speakers or good headphones. So what I'm doing, I'm changing the phase, the starting of the phase of one of the channels. Since of course now it's going to be kind of offsetted or delayed by some amount, we just hear a difference. And it's kind of a moving from left to right if you listen well. And it's because I'm on 180. If I make them closer, still you're going to get this wide spread. You don't need to go kind of a ultra crazy because it's going to do kind of a ping pong kind of a thing. And if that's what you want to do, that's okay. But if I go down, you get a nice spread. And that's going to be, what this is doing. So then you get the other thing, which is going to be the spin. So the spin, it's pretty, I wouldn't say pretty similar. It's kind of the same idea. We want to make it kind of a wide. So the spin is going to modulate the rate of the left and the right. Now with the phase, we just change or offset the modulation, the sine wave, a little bit so we can, make it wider. Now the spin is going to modulate the rate. So now left is going to be going at one speed, and then the other one, the right, is going to go on a different speed, on a different rate. And of course, since both are now different, you are going to be getting this wide spread. Right now we get nothing. As soon as I go up, we can hear it. And if I do a resonance, we can hear it even more. And if we just do it a little bit, you're going to get it. So the left side is doing something, and now the right side is a little bit faster. If you go crazy and you listen closely, the right side, it's kind of a faster, and the left side, it's a little bit, slower. I want to say slower, it's just this time, the rate that we have right here. The right is faster, the left is slower. So of course, you don't have to go crazy. You just can do a little bit, and you're still going to be getting that kind of a spread. Right, so pretty simple, right? It's just pretty understandable. So if I go to the tempo synced one, there's a tiny difference. We can see it right here. We have the phase and the spin. Now, one more thing that I need to kind of mention is that when you're in Hertz mode, you can use the phase, and when you use it and you change it to the other one, you're not using the phase, you're just using the spin. So you choose this one or you use this one. You cannot use both at the same time. Now on the other one, you can do this at the same time. Now they are a little bit different from the other one. So let me just kind of show you first. I'm going to do some kind of a modulation right here, kind of starting from the scratch. I'm going to go slower because we are going tempo synced, right? So, of course, the phase is going to do the same thing that the other one is doing. It's just doing the same. If I move this and alter this, now, of course, now left and right are going to be a little bit different. And we can hear that spread, right? Pretty simple. We can already know this. So then you have the offset. I'm going to go all the way down on the face. Now the offset is going to offset the starting of the modulation. Now, by default, the modulation, the waveform, is going to go kind of constantly. You just don't re-trigger. This is just not how it works in this case. On this case of this, LFO, but you can change. You can offset the phase. Now, let me just go right here and give you an example. I'm going to be playing something, and I'm holding a key. We can clearly see that. Now, I'm going to move the offset. Can you notice the difference? No? And it's because there is no difference. Since this is tempo synced, if the playback is on off, nothing will pretty much happen because we just kind of don't notice the difference. And besides, this is kind of a sync to the tempo. So if we are not on play, nothing is going to happen. Now, if I do it and I do play, now I'm going to be starting to change the offset. And notice this, now it's reacting to the changes of the offset. You might be thinking, okay, so what's the point of doing all of this? I'm going to go to the metronome. And now, since I'm doing play, we can really hear where we are, right? So if I play something and I do something like a square, and I'm going to go to maybe 1/4, because this is what it's doing, we can clearly kind of sync the motion or the modulation of the shape of the square with the metronome. Right? Every time you hear a click, it's just going up and we can sync it. Now, if I offset this waveform, now it's going to be out of sync of the with metronome. So if I move it, there you go. Not in sync anymore. If I go all the other way, it's going to be in sync again because we are just doing full kind of a full circle. You can go all the way and back again. But just offsetting is just going to be doing that. Now, still, you can use the phase, and this will give you different sounds, of course. If I go back, pretty much in phase, and if I offset, just a little bit different. So that's what you can do with the phase and the offset. Then you don't really listen the difference until you do the playback, of course. So that is the LFO and the sample and hold. And one more thing I need to kind of tell you is that when you are using sample and hold, you don't have access to all these controls. You don't have spin, you don't have anything. And maybe you're wondering, okay, since the other one, the last one, it's mono, can we make it, wider? No, you cannot just do it. You just cannot do that. But, since you get this one, you're just going to be getting kind of a random on each side. And you kind of get there. Alright, so that's pretty much the LFO. Now we need to talk about the quantize that we get right here at the bottom. And I'm going to start with the default setting, like before. And I'm going to go down like here, like that. And I'm going to do a little bit of resonance. Now, when I play something and I move this knob, we can hear that I'm sweeping the frequencies and it's really smooth, right? And I mean really smooth, right? So what is the purpose of the quantize? Now the quantize is going to quantize whatever movement we are doing with the frequencies. So now instead of just hearing this smoothness when we sweep, it's going to quantize it. I know it sounds kind of I'm not explaining it, and it's because this is something that you need to hear and only works just like, what we did on the subdivisions right here. It only works when we are playing. So I'm going to do some playing. Of course, we don't hear anything going on, and I'm going to be playing this. I'm going to do quantize, and I'm just going to keep it to, I don't know, maybe 2 for now. And I'm going to start moving. Notice the difference, and I'm going to go up in resonance. So this is what the quantize is going to do. It's not letting us kind of sweep smoothly. It's just quantizing every time we move. Now, of course, you can go slower, and this is going to go super slow. Or you can go super fast. Right? So that's the quantize, and it sounds pretty cool. Now, of course, you can have your LFO do this for you. right? So that's the whole point with the quantize. I know it is just pretty simple, it's just what it does, but yeah, you need to do, and you need to be on play in order to hear this. Okay, so I'm going to start fresh, and now we need to talk about the envelopes, and we are going to be using the spectrum just to see how this works. So, of course, the envelope, what it will do, it will follow to whatever incoming signal this is getting, and it's going to be moving the cutoff filter. So I'm going to be doing something like that so we can really kind of see it and hear it, and I'm going to go to no unison in this case. So the envelope, what it will do, it will just follow whatever incoming signal, and it's just going to do the modulation. Now the attack is how fast it's going to do it. If I go really, here, it's going to be super fast, but if I provide a little bit of attack, we can hear and actually see that kind of a sweep. Now then, of course, that release, if I go all the way down, notice that we get pretty much nothing. The release in this case works like kind of a, it's going to give you, or let you have more of whatever it is that you want to do in this case. Because this is an envelope follower. It's not, an ADSR. It's just an envelope follower. Now, one thing that you need to do, you need to be aware, because this controls work pretty much with that, is that the volume or whatever is that you're feeding to this envelope, because this is a follower, right? If you have a very kind of a dull or maybe not a good sound, the envelope will not react will not react good. So for example, if I go down on the level, notice that the envelope is just not reacting to pretty much nothing, and it's because the level is all the way down, so it's not picking this up. So if I go up in the level, just gonna be more reactive to whatever it is that we are doing. Now also this will be, of course, react a little bit better, or it's gonna go a little bit crazy. You notice that it's kind of a modulating, and it's because we are doing unison, and it's just listening to whatever we have. And it's kind of a following or reacting to that envelope or sound incoming signal. So, of course, depends on what you want to do. This is going to be a really cool effect or maybe a not so cool effect. Now, I'm going to go back to the mono and I'm going to go with you all the way. So if I do this, now the envelope is going to be, and I'm going to do something slow-ish. It's going to start up and then go down. So we are just inverting the envelope. Pretty simple control. Right, so that's the idea. Maybe the level is just way too low. Now we can hear it a little bit better. Right, so this is what we can do. Now, we have a different thing, which is going to be this sidechain that we have right here. Now, instead of just listening to this incoming input, this signal, which is going to be no input, we can choose something else right here. So in this case, I have a kick right here that it's kind of a playing. So of course it's not, we cannot hear it, it's not audible because the volume is all the way down. But if I go up in volume, we can hear the kick. So the idea is that we can listen for a different channel, and this is going to be listening for the kick. And now the motion is going to happen following the kick. That's the idea of the sidechain. Now you can choose a lot of things right here, but in this case, I'm going to be selecting my kick. Now, of course, right here, you can do pre-effects or post-effects or, post-mixer. It's completely up to you. I'm going to do pre-effects. And now if I play something, the signal that is going from our synthesizer is being modulated by the kick. If I do some attack, maybe not so much of release, we can really hear it. Now, of course, remember that the gain or the volume that feeds to the envelope follower will affect the motion. So if I go up in gain, the motion is going to be a little bit different. Right? So that's it. That's pretty much the whole thing. This is reacting a little bit better with the sidechain when I go down on the release. So that's it. We can use a different sound source just to modulate the cutoff filter the way we want to. So So also notice that you have a mix. Now the mix, if you are on the 100%, the kick is the only thing that is going to be used to be modulated. And notice that this needs to be on play in order to make it work. And for now, I'm just going to go down the kick. We know how it sounds. Right. So if I go down in the mix, we are not doing anything. This is only reacting to our synthesizer. So you can make a blend between your synthesizer, your signal right here, and the kick signal, the sidechain one. You don't have to go 100% if you don't want to. Alright, so hopefully you learned something on this one, and remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can. You just check the links at the description. You have Patreon, you have PayPal, you have the YouTube thanks now, I guess. So if you have the money and you want to, you can buy me a coffee. Alright, so see you on the next one.